Hi friends, it's Deanna Williston from Our Blooming Catholic Life, and you're probably thinking this is a book review. Not exactly. It is Friday. This could serve as a book review for you, but I really want to address an issue that keeps coming up. Joan of Arc gets cited by so many people as being gender bending and that, she was such a tomboy and stuff, and it's okay. And I stop that. Stop that. Let's go into a little bit more why. This book is by, and I cannot pronounce her first name, Professor Nash Marshall. She is professor of philosophy, holding the Mary T. Clark Chair of Christian Philosophy. She has an international education. She has 2 PhDs from Fordham University and from the Università Cattolica di Milano. She's the author of several books, numerous articles in her favorite fields, metaphysics and the receptivity of the intellect. Recently, she began to concentrate on the problem of evil, a topic on which she has lectured internationally. In this fascinating biography, Nash Marshall engages the enigmatic figure of Joan of Arc and her contemporaries in the pursuit of the spiritual meaning of nationhood and personal quests. Like, what? We all have that really popular version from various movies and things, and perhaps from can see him in my head, Mark Twain. That image of Joan of Arc, and a very popular legend for kids, and that's great, but that's a simple story. We need to go deeper. As the book tells us on the back cover, over 5.5 centuries have passed since Joan of Arc's death, and yet we are still writing books about her, asking ourselves who she really was, what she really did, and why what she did was so important. The facts give us the best answers to the questions. Before Joan appeared, France was a depressed place, on the verge of falling under foreign domination. It was Joan who single-handedly changed this, calling her nation to share in her faith, confidence, and passion. The book is about the terror she caused, the love she inspired, and the nation she created. So yeah, was she powerful and mighty? She did all things through Christ. So amazing. It's funny, this is apparently in a series of books, so there's also Duke Ellington, Franz Fanon, Frida Kahlo, and Rumi. That's odd. It's an odd series. But this is the one we're looking at. It is it's a Crossroad publishing book. That makes more sense. This is Joan of Arc, a spiritual biography. Spiritual biography. I apologize, friends. I'm just so passionate about this. I'm getting all caught up. Let's see if we can see. First published in 1999, and that is when the copyright is as well. Let's see. Table of contents, not my favorite, but it is a book you're going to read through cover to cover, so the page numbers are not as important, but it is a source for a lot of people. So let's go over what we have in here. The Inquisitor and the Maid, Domremy, from Domremy to, I can't say French places. Oh, I see. These are all places on her journey, but they're like physical locations, and they're French names, of course. Should have had my son down here for this. I can't pronounce French at all, so I'm not going to try that. There is a picture here I'm going to show you in a second. Joan of Arc standing with her battle standard in hand by the altar in Reims Cathedral during Charles's coronation. So you can see here, she is wearing armor on the top, a nice long skirt on the bottom. It does look like a nice long skirt, doesn't it? So most people have this image of her completely in men's clothing. You can see, maybe she is still wearing a full suit of armor. How does this look? What is it? Why is it important? There are quotes in here from her trial as well. I believe this could be the first one. Be careful, you who call yourself my judge. Be careful about what you are doing, because my quest does come from God, and you are taking a terrible risk. Oh, maybe that. Let's see here. Starts right here. The ordeal was finally coming to an end. After a year of imprisonment, a 4-month trial, an abjuration, and a counter-abjuration, Joan of Arc was to be burnt at the stake. The Vieux Marché, the old marketplace at Rouen, was swarming with people. It was the second time in less than a week that a crowd had gathered to see her, and everyone there that there could be no third. A relapsed, quote, heretic could know no end other than death. Escorted by what eyewitnesses claim were some 800 soldiers armed with axes and swords, the death cart bearing Joan rolled into the square, where there was an enormous scaffold with a massive plaster stake bearing the sign, Joan called the Virgin, liar, pernicious seducer of the people. diviner, superstitious, blasphemer of God, defamer of the faith of Jesus Christ, braggart, idolatrous, cruel, dissolute, invoker of devils, apostate, schismatic, and heretic. Wood had already been piled around the stake. 3 other wooden platforms loomed above the square. Waiting for her on the first one, lavishly decorated with tapestries, were her ancestors, the members of the ecclesiastical court who were about to excommunicate her. The bailiff of Rowan and his entourage, the secular authorities, who were called upon to sentence Joan to death and carry out the execution, were on the second platform. It was adjacent to the first. Nicholas Middy of the University of Paris, who was one of the court assessors, stood on the third platform. It was somewhat removed from the first 2 platforms, and askew with respect to them. What ensued was the slow and meticulous dance of public death. You can tell this book is captivating. It is going to draw you on. It is really going to explain things to you in a way that you have probably never heard. I'm gonna kind of jump through because I want you to read the book for yourself and really see what's going on here. Let's start. So that is chapter 1 is really about her execution. We're gonna end this. We're gonna end this. We're gonna end this by end chapter 1. And it talks about questers so many times. Okay, we're going to start on page 25. This is the end of chapter 1. So this is, they talk about Joan's execution and all, but we're going to go in here. It does talk a lot more about questing before this. I just want to read the end. We're not going to read the entire book. So it says here, the fact that questers become their quests is what makes them such controversial figures. They simply defy categorization. Quests are extraordinary missions, and the extraordinary cannot be defined through ordinary means. To define Joan simply as a warrior or simply as a person of extraordinary faith is to misunderstand Joan. Joan was both things at once. But how does one define that combination? It defies categories. It defies logic. Joan is a scandal in the original sense of the word. It is no wonder, then, that there have been so many vastly different interpretations of Joan's life. Since questers have extraordinary missions, they often use extraordinary means to accomplish their missions. Their quests often lead them to challenge the status quo, customs, and mores. Joan, who was in this respect no different from thousands of other people whose lives were missions, defied many customs in pursuit of her quest. Joan could hardly have changed the course of history if she had let herself be bothered by an unwritten medieval rule that held that noblemen alone could be chefs de guerre. Nor could she have led and lived with an army if she had attempted to accommodate social mores. The defiance of custom leads many people to concentrate on the means the questers use to fulfill their callings, rather than on the quester's quest. It makes them misunderstand both the quester and his quest. The inquisitor, for example, could not understand why Joan insisted on wearing men's clothing. It was blasphemous, he claimed. The matter came up time and time again in her trial. Joan, on the other hand, could not understand why he considered her clothing so important. Her clothing was a secondary thing, she responded time and time again. Joan died because she returned to men's garb. The inquisitor took it to be a sign of her relapse. Contemporary feminists often set their sights exclusively on Joan's dismissal of custom, as it is for this reason that they can make her out to be a precursor of contemporary feminism. And this book, again, was written in 1999, so she didn't anticipate the transgender moment, who is also saying that Joan is clearly a precursor of the transgender moment. Just adding that on my own. They can interpret her dismissal of custom as a sign of her will to affirm her sex. Others set their sights on other unusual things in Joan's behavior. There are plenty anyone can point to. Make her out to be a shaman, a communist, a heretic, and so forth. Hence the plethora of interpretations. Finally, what makes questers so difficult to deal with is their extraordinary passion. And passion tends to engender passion. It is very difficult to look upon questers without seeing them through the respect, admiration, incredulity, or perhaps even disgust that they elicit. It is very difficult to think dispassionately of a young girl in armor whose zeal on the battlefield stirred a defeated people to rise and throw off the yoke of foreign domination, it is also very difficult to think dispassionately of an 18-year-old peasant girl in a red dress who knocked on the door of the high and mighty to convince them that God had sent her to crown the king. And so we begin on page 27 with chapter 2, with Joan telling you, "It was my mother who taught me the Ave Maria, Pater Noster, and Credo." And it talks about Joan's birth. And we really do begin at the beginning of her life. And it's going to walk you through her entire life. There's a number of pictures. Below is a picture of her dressed as the Maid of Orleans. And she's saying she's inspired much art and literature, as well as the house that she was born in. Lots of great things. It gives you the political background between the English and French, which is massively important when it comes to her death. You have to understand that. There are also little inset versions here on the history. Who is Charles the Mad? You're going to need to understand that. So I love that there are little offset things. Who is Charles the Mad? In the late 14th century, Charles VI was crowned King of France. Modern psychologists claim that Charles was schizophrenic, and there is a reference for that. The bouts of royal madness were serious, recurrent, and long. Charles killed 4 of his attendants during his first fit on 1392 and had 43 fits after that first one. They lasted anywhere from 3 to 9 months. That meant someone had to take up Charles's royal responsibilities for him during these bouts of madness. So I saw the superscript for footnote. Where are the footnotes? Let's come to the back. All the way in the back is acknowledgments. It's fairly short, but there is a chronology of Joan's life. And they give space. Look, there's a big gap here, and they leave that gap. They leave that gap to show you that there's a huge gap in the timeline. When they're closer together, the events were closer together. That's not the way most people do things, but look at this one. Some big gaps again. So it is quite a detailed one. The notes are all the way in the back. So the footnotes are chapter by chapter with the numbers starting again at each chapter. And it does give you the chapter number as well as the title of the chapter. That is very helpful. But these are very important. So you may want to put some kind of a sticky tab back here or a bookmark so that you can get to these notes easily. There's something after notes. What other features are here? There's quite a bit of footnotes. Then there is a bibliography. She did no small... You're thinking this is just a small book. There's a lot of research that went into this. And then there is an index back here for you. Huge index. Huge. People, places, names. Huge index. It is super helpful doing any sort of research. It talks about the visionaries, the voices. A World War II is even mentioned in here. There's so much in here. Plenty of saints are listed as well. You can see. Why are they all in here? You're going to read it to find out. I do love that that's in here. Let's see if the clothing is mentioned or something just as clothing. Can we find it? Cross-dressing is listed on pages 63 as well as 146. Oh, let me look at that again. Was that 63 and 146? Yes. Since that was the point I wanted to make in here, I'm going to read you a little bit of that. Okay. Page 63. It does not tell us across the top what chapter we're in, just the author's name and the title of the book. So that's not going to be any help. Page numbers are in the bottom center. I'm assuming that since there's a new section starting on this page, that's where this is going to be. 63. This is talking about the tribunal. June spent some 3 weeks in Poitiers, where she was questioned by a large tribunal, which includes some high-ranking members of the church, 2 bishops, the Archbishop of Reims, and Reims, and the confessors of the King and Queen of France. Why is Reims important? Where have you heard that word before? And the confessors of the King and Queen of France. This was an official inquisition. Joan was naturally none too happy for the loss of time. She was very urgent about getting on with her business, but no doubt she understood the importance of official ecclesiastical approval of her mission. She was a lively witness during her interrogations, but not a hostile one. The exact content of her Poitier's trial is not known. It is her one trial whose minutes have been lost. Well, if I haven't gone over that, there are minutes that exist to her trial. You can read them online, very accessible. And in fact, the movie, it's very hard to watch. The Passion of Joan of Arc is a black and white avant-garde movie, and the dialogue is exclusively taken from the trials. It is very jarring. It's reminiscent of the land of make-believe in Mr. Rogers, but creepy and awful and horrible. I can't watch the movie one more time. I had to watch it like 15 times for a graduate class. I can't do it again. But the exact content of the trial is not known. It is her one trial whose minutes have been lost. This is a great pity, for not only would an exact account of the proceedings have given a first-hand portrait of Joan, which was not tainted by the animosity of its redactors, it would also have filled in many blanks. Joan often referred the Rowan Commission to those minutes for exact answers to vital questions that they asked her. What is known about the trial is its verdict, how Joan was examined, a few of her more brash comments, and her prophecies. The verdict was in Joan's favor. The Inquisition declared that Joan was indeed a virgin, as she claimed to be. It declared that she was a good and humble and pious Catholic who had been given a divine mission, which allowed her to disregard Deuteronomy's commandment regarding cross-dressing and to lead the Dauphin's armies in their attempt to raise the siege of Orleans. The verdict was based upon both Joan's responses to extensive questioning on the part of the tribunal, some of whom were prominent theologians, a physical examination which was conducted by Joan. It tells you two ladies who conducted it, both of whom were ladies in waiting to the Dauphin's mother-in-law, Yolanda of Aragon. Let's go to, 146, where it is addressed again. 146, interesting. Was that really the page number? 146. It's one of those inset boxes. This one's saying the phenomenon of Joan's voices is spring has totally sprung here while I'm making this video, and only so much I can do about the voice. Sorry. Let's see. I can't reproach the first word, but I'll try. Kuchan's approach to the matter of Joan's voices is surprisingly modern. The scores of scholars who have picked up his torch and tried to give a naturalistic explanation to the phenomenon of Joan's voices have all followed one of the routes which he outlined at the trial. Physicians have given their input and called upon all types of physical distortions in order to prove that something other than God was the cause of Joan's visions and behavior. Some claim that Joan's visions were actually the proof that she had Meniere's disease. The disease, after all, produces many odd visual and auditory disturbances. Others claim that she had a genetic disorder, that her chromosomes were not female in order to explain her belligerence. Aha! There are psychologists who claim that Joan's visions were actually wish-fulfilling dreams. Joan was, as they point out, an adolescent when she began to hear voices, and adolescents are prone to have strange experiences. Others state that her cross-dressing was a sign of her desire to be a man. Others yet call upon latent homosexuality to explain her behavior. Those that do so are naturally at odds with those colleagues of theirs who claim that Joan's visions were the wish-fulfilling fantasies of a pubescent girl. For the latter group naturally presupposes that Joan's tendencies were heterosexual, Joan's first voice being St. Michael's. Anthropologists and feminists have also entered the fray, proposing many of what Karen Sullivan call spiritualist interpretations of Joan's mystical experiences. They claim that Joan was involved in the occult, that it was witchcraft that explains her strange power. These spiritualist interpreters attempt to back their claim through Joan's own testimony. When pressured by the inquisitors, Joan stated that she'd experienced her voices near the fountain by the Arbor des Fées, the fairy tree in the vicinity of Domremy. Her brother, on the other hand, claimed that Joan had her first mystical experience in the oak grove near her home. Oak groves were sacred to Celts, and one of the characteristics of the Celtic religion was belief in spirits and fairies. Were Joan's voices, they ask, not the fruit of some revival of pagan rites? Oh my goodness, friends. I really do want you to know that there are endnotes galore in that passage, and I invite you to read that. Why did Joan wear men's clothing? Well, she was called to go to battle. Did she fight in battle? We always see her wearing armor. Did she fight in battle? Why did she go along with them? Why? Why was she wearing armor? Why? Why is it she's not just wearing a dress? Oh, it's so mysterious. Can anyone figure it out? Like, come on, folks. But I do invite you to read the book. It is a very, very, very... Look, Rusty's very passionate about this, too. It is a very important book. It is a very easy to read. Those little darker sections are a little bit harder. They are a little more technical in here. But don't you love that she took the technicalities out? They're here for you. Tons of endnotes so you can see the references. But this is more of a story, the main part of the book. So it's so well done. You're going to be captivated. There are pictures throughout. Are they photographs of Joan? Of course they're not photographs of Joan, but they're photographs of different paintings and statues, different places. The actual places are pictures. So lots of great stuff in here. You can really enter into the story, and it's going to answer a lot of questions that you may have had. So many people look at Joan of Arc as just a popular fiction, right? It's not. It really happened. And she wasn't one-dimensional. It wasn't like, I'm going to save France. It wasn't even her idea. She was a deeply religious young woman, and that really comes to play. I just love the way National Marshall really took a full look at the full person of Joan of Arc. You can see that by the bibliography. That's huge. All the footnotes. Really well done. Again, you can refer back to this chronology anytime you want. This, for being such a thin book, is packed full. And you have the endnotes and bibliography should you want to go more deeply into any of the sources. That's the beauty of endnotes. So many people are like, endnotes and footnotes. No, endnotes, footnotes, and bibliography work together, and they help you to say, oh, I don't quite understand that. You can go back and look at the source material. Well done. I love this book. It is available at EWTN Religious Catalog. I probably got it at a Women of Grace retreat where there was a big talk. Dr. Nash Marshall actually came and talked to us, and we learned about Joan hands-on from her. But of course, we all stayed up, I think, all night. We bought the book right away, stayed up all night reading the book. It's amazing. If you're a Women of Grace exclusive member, you may be able to go back. That was at a Benedicta enrichment seminar. So you may be able to go back and watch that lecture as well. Ooh, exciting. So many Women of Grace events are recorded. And so you can go back and watch them. If you're a Women of Grace exclusive member, you do that at their actual website. I'll have to try and look later. Try and remind me if I don't, and you want it to go back and look if that's there. But I mean, you can go there anytime. So friends, may God bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and to be gracious unto you. And may the good Lord bless you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.